I think this may be only for warrant articles, but I'd like to move that we there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to limit reconsideration. Yes.
And you want to go down here?
No, right here.
Whatever you want me to do, I don't care. First of all, you can't limit reconsideration. We haven't voted on anything except whether we're going to take it line by line. So you can't limit reconsideration because we haven't even gotten to the end of the first warrant article. At that point, when we get to the end of the first warrant article, then we can limit reconsideration when there's no amendments. But you have to give everybody the opportunity to make an amendment. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to speak to you. So you got to have the opportunity to make an amendment if you want to.
You're absolutely
So
right.
that would take away their right to amend.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Bob.
I have a question.
Point of order, Angus.
Point of order. Okay. Sorry. Angus Corman, it's my understanding that it's state law that a secret ballot petition can be used, and that its purpose is basically so that people who might be ashamed of voting one way or the other don't need to have their vote associated with them. I'm quite confident it is not intended as a delay tactic, and so I'd like the moderator to consider judging whether it's been used as such or not. Thanks.
At this point, one second, please. I know that you have a point of order and I will listen to it. And I need to remind everyone what I said earlier. Point of order gets to a point where it's impeding the progress of this meeting, then I do have a right to not. Okay, Neil.
Neil Alexander. In response to Angus Gorman, it's nice that he was able to understand the law, the intentions of the people who wrote the law, 150, 200 years ago, and what their purposes were. The fact is that the law is the law. If people request, or if not people request a secret ballot, it must be taken as a secret ballot.
That's right. And next time I will be asking for the people who signed that to stand up so that we know they're here. Bob.
Bob Constantine. I'd like to mention that the town is a subdivision of the state, and as such, subject to the rights that the state has agreed to protect. Article 30 in the state constitution, it does say the freedom of deliberation, speech, and debate in either house of the legislature, and we are a body politic here, is essential to the right of the people, that it cannot be the foundation of any action, complaint, or prosecution in any other court or place whatsoever. That's Article 30 of the New Hampshire Constitution.
What is your point, Bob? I'm sorry, but
My point is that you can't vote to take away a person's right.
thank you. Okay. We are at the point of discussion for Okay, so we are going to discuss Article number 2 at this time. And as I said, we had yes to vote not to go line by line, 27, no, 66. So we're going to go bottom line. Okay. Okay, point of order, Brian.
I'm going to make a motion that we go by department.
Point of order.
Whoa,
Motion is not a point of order.
he's absolutely right,
I
Brian.
don't have time. I'm trying to scribble it out. I haven't had time to prepare a proper motion.
Brian?
Point of order.
Brian, I need to state this. Jeffrey is exactly right. A point of order is not a motion. A point of order is to get me back on track.
Point of order, you you're jumping to the conclusion that the deliberative body has moved to go on the bottom line. I disagree.
I don't believe that I am jumping to the conclusion when the vote says no 66 and yes 27.
To go to line by line, I want to go by department. You jumped to, you made a conclusion on that we're voting on the bottom line. We haven't, as a deliberative body, we haven't made that.
Okay, I need a motion. Joe, you're in line.
I just wanted to actually, get into the discussion of the ultimate discrepancy. I'd like to actually ask them to explain it, since it seemed to be the whole issue was, what is this discrepancy of several thousand dollars?
Okay, we're going.
Find out what it is.
We're going for it. And Jeremy, are you speaking to? No, no. You go ahead and speak.
Well, I have a motion myself to make on the motion. Amendment, yes, it's amendment.
I'm not ready for an amendment. In just a minute, I will be, and I will call on that.
Okay.
All right.
I would like to make a motion to discuss the second warrant article in its entirety and its at the bottom line. Second.
You don't have to, it's already on the floor. It's on the
Somebody feels that it's not discussed. Okay, maybe it's not this motion.
Okay. Let me see then. If I have this corrected, I know you will correct me if I'm not. At 66 no and 27 yes, you voted to go bottom line. Am I correct?
You voted to not go line by line.
Which
Doesn't mean
means-
somebody can't make another amendment or a motion.
Okay. All right, I have it then. So, I have an amendment on the floor. A motion on the floor. Cindy, did you have something to say before I read this?
Possibly.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if the budget committee would speak to what's changed since the hearing, so we could just be done with knowing what the difference is and hopefully move on.
I have a motion on the floor, and I would treat this as an amendment. And okay. Brian, this is,
Daniel just made a motion for the second, that is one motion on the floor at a time.
okay, thank you, David. Okay, so the motion is to discuss the budget.
Point of order, I know if I can end that motion before the second person.
Just a second. What, Jeremy?
Brian notified he was putting that motion, he had the floor to do that before the second person put in their motion. It just took him an attempt tonight to write it out, and they got their motion in. Should be on the floor first.
I'm sorry. No. What we voted on a little while ago is to discuss this line by line or bottom line. 66 said no, not to do line by line. So what is left is bottom line. Out of that. I'm going to yield for just a second. Body
Okay, so right now, according to my minutes, what is on the floor isn't the fact whether we're not going to go line by line, period. That motion failed. So it automatically reverts back to the warrant article as is. And that's what Susan opened for discussion. It does not mean that you can't put in another motion, but at this moment in time, the floor has been open for discussion on the article. So Dan didn't need to make a motion because that's where we're at. We reverted to that. We haven't, so Susan has to give the opportunity, because she already declared it, that we're open for discussion. So the people that want to step up to the mic should be stepping up to the mic to speak on the budget as presented, the article as presented. Again, it doesn't mean that somebody can't present a motion, but she already opened that. There were already people standing there that said they wanted to speak on it. So that's where we're at right this minute. So, there is no amendment. It's a motion. So this, he was busy writing this while people were standing here. Cindy has asked for clarification, and I think somebody else already asked for that. Joe Pratt asked for clarification. So the budget committee should be responding.
Okay.
Catherine kind of said it, but I don't think everybody understood it. So,
Okay. At this time, I'm going to say it is open for discussion. And Brian, there were people, like Bonnie said, there were people already ready to discuss. So your motion would have to be after they've already said what they need to say. Yes. Brian, did you have a question?
I said, point of order, after you jumped to the conclusion that they were going to the bottom line. And then I said, point of order, we don't have permission from the deliberative body to go to the bottom line. I sat here and feverishly wrote an article to go by general government with a budget cut. And now all of a sudden, that is going to be flushed under the rug, and here we go again. Taxpayers, sit down and shut up, and we are going to
Brian,
tax the money.
that's enough. That's not necessary to phrase it that way. Okay? Rooster.
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to point out to the body and also to you that unless you recognize the people to speak and bring up a motion on the microphone, there's nothing that's happening. To bounce around back and forth here with a motion and a second motion, amendment motion, is just making things confusing. People don't know where we're at. People making valid points out here that we need to go in line, not by line, but we need to start to rephrase this. We need to be recognized by you and then proceed from that point. Everybody jumping up and doing all this stuff is making this stuff, amendments and all this stuff is not being recognized by you, so I wouldn't entertain it. What you have in front of you has not been presented to you yet. Okay, so it's in actuality, it needs to be recognized by the chair, which you are the chair. And I would wish to proceed and move on in that point of order, the way it's going, because you need to have pertain to what we were talking about on the budget. I'd like to talk about the budget, but I'm not going to, at this time, want to talk about the secretary at this moment.
Thank you. Steve?
Where are we at?
Okay. Bonnie just addressed that. That's exactly right.
Steve Cutler. I understand we already got a couple people want to speak to the differences of what happened at the, couple thousand difference. I would actually like the budget committee to also speak on what the revenues were last year, what the projected revenues are this year, and what the tax hike per thousand is going to be if we actually accept this budget.
I can take and answer some of your questions. I can't answer them all. The discrepancy that Cindy came up with, what happened was at the final budget hearing, the clerk took the wrong numbers. She took the selectmen's numbers, and then we made the second round of cuts, and she deducted it. She was deducting from the selectmen's numbers, not our numbers that we had already, which were lower than the numbers that the selectmen had gave us. That's where why you're seeing a difference. As far as what the tax impact rate is, I can't give you that. Steve, come up and.
The bottom line for this year's budget is $1,023,681. Last year's budget that was passed was $993,556. The difference between the two is an increase of $30,125. There's a lot of factors that go into the tax rate if all things stay the same. Our revenues, the change in the tax rate based on my calculations is 24 cents per thousand.
Sorry, it was my understanding that the revenues are actually less. My apologies, everyone. It is my understanding that the revenues this year are significantly less than the revenues that were anticipated last year. Can you speak to that also? Is that what it actually impacted the tax rate?
The revenues will absolutely impact the tax rate, and I can't speak to that right now in the budget committee.
So we're presenting a budget, we have no idea what the revenues are? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with.
We have the definitions on the MS7. I think we'll get right back to that, Steve.
The reason why there's a difference in the revenues is we did not have, we did not have an auction last year. There could be a potential one this year. We have to be on the conservative side on the revenues. We don't want to put too many in there because that does affect the tax rate.
Jeremy.
Jeremy Olson. I have a copy of the MS7 37. It says actual revenues prior year, $382,303. And this year's revenues are expected to be $352,390. So that's just shy of a $30,000 drop this year.
Liam Dugan, Selectman, to answer your question is because we had the auction, Sue answered the same question. I don't know if you understood or not. We had an auction and sold off some property that was for back taxes. This year we can't anticipate that because we don't know what we're going to have for land or what it's going to go for. So that's why we're on the conservative side, so we don't have to borrow money and stuff like that.
Is there any other comment?
Bob Constantine, I have a question for the budget committee. Were there any respected departments that normally take in one number in revenue and did not because something was overlooked?
No, most of the departments have their own revolving account, which does not affect the tax rate, and the only other income that comes in is through the selectmen's department. And they have those numbers, and they always try to not give a high number, because if they give a high number and less comes in, then everybody's going to say, well, where did it go? So they try to play it safe, give a smaller number, and if more money comes in than what's expected, then it looks better for the town.
Brett?
I have a copy here of the current MS 737, and this year's estimated
we move on to the next article, I still have Brian's motion that has to be handled. I'm going to say that Brian's motion goes back to going line by line. He says, I make a motion to cut the general government. Oh, I'm sorry. I make a motion to cut the general government to 300,000. Okay? All right. So we voted long ago that we were going to talk about bottom line, and therefore, if he wants to cut general government, excuse me, will be bottom line. So, Brian, did you have a second on this motion?
I'll second.
Who was that? Jeremy? Okay. Brian, do you want to say anything to your motion?
I would, can't hear me. I'm not going bottom line. As this is laid out, I'm going to the bottom of the general government subsection. The total is $349,103. I submitted an article to cut it to $300,000. That's not the bottom line. That is the bottom of the general government subsection.
Okay, then I misunderstood you, Brian. I thought you were talking about the bottom line. Therefore, I'm going to say that I can't accept that motion because we've already voted on talking bottom line, and you just told us that this is not bottom line. Brewster? I'll get you next.
Ask the secretary, have you accepted that motion, that amendment to that motion? Have you accepted that? And did it come to the microphone to do that? Because I don't remember seeing that come up here, or you recognizing that right at the moment, even though he walked across here and gave you a piece of paper with names on it. That is not how they accept the motion or amendment, I don't believe.
I understand, Brewster, and I just told him that I could not accept this motion because he is talking about line-by-line items.
I understand that, but in further moving along with this meeting, again, as I state to the whole body, they kind of agreement with, unless you are recognized by the chair, you're at the microphone with that amendment in hand, with a petition, with the signatures, is not, nothing's happened.
I understand. Thank you. Jeremy?
My point of order again is I just wanted to reiterate what Bonnie said. We haven't actually voted to go line by line. We voted not to go line by line. That doesn't mean we voted to go to the bottom line. Brian is presenting a third option, I think, of trying to amend the whole section of the budget, which is neither a line by line action or a bottom line action. I think that's what his motion is trying to do.
Elaine?
Actually, Daniel put a motion on the floor first to say bottom line. I think we could actually get that resolved just by showing hands. Did we understand that we were voting for line by line or bottom line? I knew what I was voting for. I think most people in this room knew what they were voting for. This is semantics.
I think that's an excellent way to settle this right now. You are only informing me and the rest of the body the way that you understood what you were voting on. What you were voting on a while ago. Did you understand that you were voting on, by saying yes, you were voting on to talk about bottom line and not go line by line?
Point of order, we already voted on that?
Neil, I realize we voted on it. I am asking to make sure that everybody understood it. I'm not voting on it again, I'm asking to make sure everybody understood what we did.
If they voted, they should have understood it in the first place.
Point of order.
It was very clear what we were voting on.
I'm sorry, but the way I'm going to do it is to find out if people understood.
If choose particular items that they're interested in talking about and discussing. That's their choice, and that is what I inferred, and what is, I would think any reasonable person would assume, that there is a third choice here.
Point taken, thank you.
I'd like to state again, John Cornell, I would like to state again, I have no interest whatsoever in delaying this. If it could be over now, I would be happy. It does not matter what we thought we voted for. We voted, when this is not a living, breathing vote, is it? We voted on a specific thing, and if people don't like the result, or they think they didn't know, well, maybe the next time they need to pay better attention. But these are not living, breathing votes that we can then maybe look around the floor to see if we have chads or half ballots. Where is this going to go?
I submitted that motion. Jeremy Olson. I submitted that motion. The exact wording was whether or not it was to go line by line. At no point in it did I mention anything about bottom line. A yes vote meant go line by line. A no vote meant don't go line by line. That's what I meant by the motion. That is crystal clear by how it was written. Bonnie apparently agrees, as has been stated several times, that those aren't the dichotomy, as Neil said. And this is why people at the beginning of this meeting tried to replace you as moderator, because this is the same thing that happened last year, where you try to take like a straw poll on what people think something meant after you've been saying something, or other people have been saying something, and that's not what it's meant. I meant by my motion only to ask if we're going line by line or not. I didn't ask anything about the bottom line. I find it offensive that you're trying to reinterpret my motion after a vote has been taken on it. And that's it. Thank you.
Debbie Clough. Actually taking the bottom general government or solid waste or health and welfare, that's picking it apart line by line. The bottom line is the only thing that we should be voting on right now, because even though it's not line by specific line, you're still picking a line out of the warrant article to discuss. So you are basically trying to make it line by line.
I would like to restate my motion. Point of order. My motion, which I wrote out, put my address, my name on, and submitted in writing, which is the way it's always been done, has the general government subheading, and I cut the amount from 349,103 to 300,000. That's what we're voting on.
Madam Moderator,
That's a line item.
Yes.
I would like to clarify. Point of order. I believe the rules of the moderator are clear. Point of order must address the order in which the meeting has progressed. And if this is abused, that person has become disruptive to this meeting. And I believe they should be asked to leave. We need to make this a timely meeting, and we need to make it reasonable. It has become unreasonable, and I expect that the moderator should follow her rules.
I think there's just a big misinterpretation in what Brian was saying. What he should have asked for was a motion to amend the article. And I believe that's what we were going for. My name's Christopher Carnes, by the way. He should not use point of order in order to get your attention on such a thing. He should call for a motion to amend. So from now on, if anybody wants to amend anything, motion to amend the articles.
Thank you. Okay, Steve, after this,
I just want to, I just want to make mention about Deb Clough's argument about line by line, that if by her definition of line by line, the bottom line actually says line in it, which actually negates the bar.
okay. I think it's my job to make a decision here. And some people presented some good arguments, good discussion. We talked about line by line. We talked about bottom line. you said general government would be a part of the budget. Is that the way you were?
Correct, it's a subset of the way the budget is written out.
Okay. All right. So I did listen to somebody saying that's a third alternative. I'm going to do this. We have 3 alternatives here. I need to get this straight so that we can move on. I'm going to present the 3 alternatives, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands for each one. We will count those. Neil, do you have a point of order?
Is it the moderator's job to like come up with votes out of thin air? Or are we supposed to make motions that are then voted on?
Thank you. Okay. Merle? Your name?
Okay, I was just wondering, instead of doing all this, could we go back to the original motion, saying whether to take it line by line or taking it bottom line, and explain that more clearly, and we try just voting on that, so that we can make it clear that if you're voting line by line, then that means line by line or category by category, or if you're voting bottom line, that's the end of it. We're going to go on bottom line for our second article. Rather, I just thought that might be a little bit easier so that everybody understands what. You think that's reasonable?
Elaine?
I'm just going to reiterate that there is still a motion on the floor from Daniel.
Bonnie Margaret. So, first of all, I'd like to reiterate the fact that the only control this body has is to either go line by line or the bottom line. You cannot pick and choose, and it doesn't matter what Brian presents, because that board right there, at the end of the day, decides who gets money and who doesn't. So Brian could say, we'll take it out of general government buildings, or we can take it out of financial, or wherever, tax collector. He has no authority. This body only votes on how much money they're going to give this town to run, period. So he won't accomplish what he is trying to accomplish, other than the fact that he would reduce the budget, what, by $49,000? Can you even believe that this town could operate on $49,000 less? So, right now, those are your options. If anybody, and I'm not pointing out Brian, if anybody wants to make an amendment to reduce the budget by $47,000, that's a different issue. But he's not going to accomplish cutting money from general government by reducing that. And plus, you either go line by line or you go bottom line. And you simply, at this point, we've got to get back to what Dan tried to present, what is really on the floor at this moment, because Brian, I agree with Brewster, never came up to this mic. He did not read his amendment or his motion and present it to the body. And when he presented it from his seat, I clearly have written that he wanted to go department by department. There was no word in that motion that he presented, unwritten motion, that he wanted to cut that particular department by $47,000.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'm going to listen to Joe and to David, and then I'm going to close the discussion and go back. I'm going to ask Dan to restate his motion, and we will act on it. Would you do that at the end of these two people? Thank you. Okay, Joe?
I'd say, much as I hate to admit it, it is correct that we can't now go department by department. Those are still line items, so we are looking at the whole budget. But as Brian clearly didn't understand that, I believe in fairness, he should be allowed to restate his amendment. Since he did submit an amendment in writing, which is the appropriate way not to come to microphone. He submitted an amendment in writing, he should be allowed to rephrase his amendment.
Okay.
In a way that is in compliance with what he has been explained.
I have to say one thing to what you're saying here, Joe. At the beginning, when I gave my rules, I said that amendments would be presented from the floor, okay? And it has to be seconded from the floor. It's not brought up to me and piled in front of me. Because when it's brought up and piled in front of me, then it becomes, we really get out of order. So, I hear what you're saying. Anything?
He did, again, it appears that he didn't fully understand that. He did use point of order to attempt to.
Okay.
So I believe in fairness, he should just be allowed to redo it and start it.
Okay, we're going to go with Dan's first because I believe that was on the floor first. David?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My recommendation is, I'm not going to say much because I think you're exactly right. The next thing to do is to take Dan's amendment, which was the first motion on the floor, deal with that. Brian, if that passes, then we're explicitly bottom line, no questions asked. And if Brian wishes to resubmit a motion to amend the budget, bottom line, at that point it should be in order.
Thank you. Dan, would you please restate your motion?
What was it read into the minutes already? Referred.
That's a local motion.
Give her 1 second.
No, I made a motion to address the budget on the bottom line for fear of it being reinterpreted as being able to go back and say character by character or letter by letter or whatever. So I think my motion specifically was to ensure that we address the budget to the bottom line. I'm sure the whole room is seconded at this point, but.
Go ahead. Dan, is that you?
And this is being read, the moderator established that rule, and she's made it from others.
I'm not amending anything. I'm making
You're making a motion, but I need a motion to go into minutes.
Yes, and that.
She's got the other motion. She does that. Well, it's up to the moderator, she runs this meeting.
Dan, I would like it in writing, thank you. Is there a second? Well, I guess,
David first, we need to do.
okay. Okay. So as soon as he writes it, I will read it back to you, and then we'll open it for discussion. Shouldn't take it but a minute. All right, Dan's motion is to address the budget at the bottom line. Okay, it has been moved.
Second.
Seconded. All right. Now I will entertain any discussion. to have a 2/3 vote on moving to question. Okay? All right. So, at this time, it has been moved to question, and you are voting on whether you want to move to question or not. And if you move to question, it cuts off discussion, and we need 2/3 vote. Okay? All of those in favor of moving to question, please raise your voting card. All, okay? And all those opposed to moving to question, raise your voting card.
I see.
80 to 21. 80 yes, 21 no. It needs to be 2/3, and if I think we have, I think that would be 2/3. Yes, Bruce?
I'll be corrected. Since when does it have to be 2/3 on a vote on any warrant article or any majority? It's supposed to be a majority vote. 2/3 is something on a budgetary thing that we had the school thing for our bond issue we had last year. I do not believe we have to have a 2/3 majority.
Brewster.
I believe. I don't remember you saying get a 2/3 vote on anything.
Brewster, it is stated in our laws, in our RSA, wait, let me finish, please, because I think you've misunderstood me. When someone calls for question, and that's what we're voting on, if we're going to go ahead and call to question, is the discussion is over and we're voting on the, what, no.
We did it the last time I moved the question, the time before that, we did not vote a 2/3 vote. I don't believe we have. I don't believe you have to go back and check that. I don't believe we've done that. We've gone, I'm not going either way here. I'm just saying to you, if the majority of the people, which we did on the hand vote, which we did before, that's why we didn't go to the secret ballot deal, we went to a hand vote, and the majority said, move on to the question. And that's what we did. There was no 2/3. That's why I was trying to clarify. I don't believe there's any 2/3 on any of these actions we're talking about. It's the majority of the body.
The only, it does say for call to question, 2/3. And that's what I have to stand with. Okay, so.
Susan, motion for non-reconsideration on number 2.
Sir, they haven't had an opportunity to discuss yet, so, okay? I know. Yes, Jeremy. the bottom line. If you are voting no, then you do not want to address it at the bottom line. Okay? All of those in favor, please hold up your voting card. It cannot be counted unless you hold your voting card. Are we all set? Deb?
Yeah.
All right. Candy, go yours. Okay. All those opposed, please raise your voting card. Yes, 20 no, the ayes have it. So Dan's amendment, motion to address the budget at the bottom line passes, and therefore discussion on the budget, I'm sorry, I'm speaking, but you wait a minute, please. Therefore, the discussion on the budget will be on the bottom line. Thank you. Yes, I look at that. Thank you.
It's to the bottom line.
I'm planning to read it. Okay. Brian has submitted this motion. He says, I move to amend the budget. What is that word, Brian?
It's a 20% cut budget.
I understand, but there's a word up here. I need you.
Reduce the budget.
Now, come here, please. Come here, please. I just want to get it correct. I move to amend the budget.
Reduce by 20%.
All right, Brian's motion is. Point of order, Brewster.
Sorry, but I want to be correct. The person making the amendment to the motion should come to the microphone and read it, because that way there's no discrepancy on how you read it and how they want to interpret it, and there's no question. So I would suggest the person bringing the amendment brings it to the microphone and states how it is, and then you accept it or don't accept it. That's where it should be. I'm not trying to belabor this, but I don't need to have any confusion between what he's got for amendment and how you're going to read it.
Okay, your point is taken, Brian.
All right, I, Brian Fellers, 273.
What?
Into the mic. I, Brian Fellers, from 273 Bullocks Crossing Road, move to amend the budget by, reduce the budget by 20%, which would leave a grand total of $818,945.
All right, Bob Carson. Okay. It has been moved and seconded that to amend the budget by 20% to $818,945. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing that there is no discussion, are Debbie coming up for discussion?
No, I
All right, seeing that there is no discussion, then I would like for us to those in favor?
I would just like to request that they take this back. It is clear how the majority is voting today, and that would all appreciate being able to get through the next part of the warrant without these delaying tactics. Thank you.
Jeremy, also once again, I'd just like to point out that I believe it was part of the moderator's rules that people do not question others' motivations. Was I correct about that? That you don't question what? Okay, thank you.
You are.
Years ago, I agree with the comment before Jeremy's. I'm not getting into it personally. Make sure this is done on the Super Bowl weekend next year, okay? I want to make it light for that because I know a lot of people won't be here for that, and I know I'm supposed to be on the same subject, I understand.
Okay, I have to cut you off there.
All right, so if this is an attempt that we're going to keep doing this in every article, every one down to the line, as an attempt to try to get this body to leave here, okay? I hope you understand that.
I have a comment after you do it.
There have been a lot of very disruptive demonstrations from a certain area. I believe the moderator is required to enforce order, and if these disruption demonstrations continue, those individuals need to be ejected from the meeting as has been done in the past.
Could you, Joe, before you leave, what are you calling disruptive?
We've had occasional yells, we've had foot stomping, we've had clapping.
And I will give you this point, because when I looked through and tried to understand what disruptions were, if there's any catcalls or anything like you have just described, you're absolutely correct.
And I believe this is appropriate to give a warning at this time, but it should not continue because this is completely disrupting the
Thank you. Okay, Neil, you may speak, but then I need to speak.
Regarding the secret ballots, some of this I would want to address, at least my motivation for promoting secret ballots. It seems to me that an awful lot of people here do not want to discuss things. They don't want to talk about budgets. They don't want to talk about much of anything. I think that this is a way to promote intervening and discussion among these things on very important matters. And, we're being beat over the head with parliamentary tactics. We can do the same.
I'm going to have to say this is the last comment, not for you, but at this point.
John Connell, I'm tired of people questioning motives. You're likely to lose one participant before the day is over. I don't like to be here. This is painful for me. The procedures are what they are. We need to live within the rules. We're told that endlessly.
Let's stay on. I am going to make a statement at this time. And it is on topic, I believe. If it's not, please let me know. What I'm going to say at this time is that when I took this job, and I know, Neil, you're going to say now that I got emotional. Yes, I am. Because when I took this job because I thought this town could work together and try to make it the best town in the country. I want to see us working together, and that's all I have to say. So, at this time, we are supposed to be voting on this with a secret ballot. I need Russell to come up here, please. And Russell is going to be in charge of making sure we have a line that we can get through this quickly.
Okay, this is the way we're going to do it. The last time, it was kind of out of order and we couldn't pay any attention to anything. So we're going to line up down the middle. There's no reason to extend the line around the corner. When you guys see that the line has been moving along in this room there, get out of your seats and line up. The person gets their ballot will hand this to the checklist people. They'll put a mark on it. You'll walk over, place your ballot into the box one at a time. After that, you'll go either that way or that way through the back. Then the next person will go up to the checklist. That way they can pay attention to what's going on. Again, no line this way or a line this way. There's no need to have a line either way. When there's room here, get up, stand in line, and then go to your seat either way that you have to.
Point of order.
Yes. John, point of order.
John Daniels, I just want to be clear. We're going down this line, we're going to hand over a ballot, we're going to pick up a ballot. Now, where are we going to physically be able to mark it without anybody looking over our shoulder before we put it in the box?
You could get out of line and come off to the side somewhere, mark it, and get back in.
Are there plenty writing implements to do this? Well, we just have the ability to pick one up and drop it off. I mean, this is what happens election day. I just assumed it would happen here. Otherwise, it would drop when it ends with it.
I understand. I guess I do not have the implements to satisfy. Okay. We've got people who are donating. What?
Okay, make a suggestion. Just leave one pen on the top of the box. Let people write it on top of the box. Make their mark on there. Put it in. Leave the pen.
I appreciate that suggestion, but some people would not feel they had their privacy. Bonnie will read again what you're voting on. Okay. All right. This is what you're voting on, to address the budget at the bottom line. I'm sorry, the one you're voting on now is Brian's, and could you listen, please? Brian's motion is, I make a motion to cut the general government to $300,000.
Yeah, it was 20%.
Okay, we got it right now.
Just remember, there's some voting argument now.
All right, this is it. I move to amend the budget by 20%, reduce it by 20% to $818,945. That's what you're voting on, isn't it?
Wait for the people to go through, then you get up.
I like it, yeah. Feeling of power. And I know how the judges feel. I like this thing. I know this Russell Street right there. Long time ago. Discussion on the basis. Walk right up. Yeah, he's got the man. There is one.
as much of a mess as it was last year.